Make yourself feel at home. The crowded booth is coming on. The Crowded Booth with Bryce Coon. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Crowded Booth Live. Bryce Coon alongside Ralph Leary as we get ready to talk about Week 11 of college football. We're coming to you live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube if you're watching on Monday night. If you're watching it from earlier or from later, I guess that's how that works. If you're watching it later, then we also appreciate you're listening throughout East Alabama and West Georgia as well on the radio on your drive as well. We appreciate that as well. Ralph, how you doing? You doing well? Yeah,
I'm doing great.
Had a good weekend.
I had a good weekend. You know, a lot went on. Watched a lot of football on Saturday. Got to do a lot of good things on Saturday. I felt like
a lot of good things happened on Saturday. There's no doubt about that. We're going to talk about a lot of those things because I think this is quite the week of college football. The SEC in general. What happened? Everything except what happened in Tuscaloosa was really interesting. Tuscaloosa, Alabama played New Mexico State. Ralph, that's their third cupcake of the year.
Are you considering Miami a cupcake too?
No, I'm saying Mercer, Southern Miss, and now
Miami.
Well, no, Miami's not. They're going to get 8 wins. So, an 8-win FBS team is not going to be a cupcake. Anyways, well, maybe not.
They're not going to get. They're not getting 8 wins.
They'll get 7 wins.
They won't beat Virginia Tech.
They probably will. I think they will. That's okay. But anyways, we're live here on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. It's going to be a ton of fun to talk to you tonight. Once again, we want to thank our sponsors, Climate Control Heating and Air, Section 103, and Cook's Place in Columbus. You're going to hear from them later on in the show. Once again, I'm Bryce Coon alongside Ralph Leary III, not the second, not the original. He is just the third rendition of Ralph Leary. Ralph, we start off our quest tonight. Talking about the Plains that was not the loveliest village. 40 unanswered points Mississippi State scores on Auburn. Auburn held the vaunted 28-3 lead that if you're an Auburn fan and a Falcons fan, you know all too well about at this point. This game, listen, we talked about it, and we can go back and say, and I told you, I said, Mississippi State is going to put up some points. Now, did I think they put up 40 unanswered? I didn't think that. What were your big takeaways from this game? And we'll talk about the Bo Nix injury a little bit later on, but what was your big takeaway from watching this game and just kind of how, I guess, felt like Auburn just took their foot off the gas pedal, could not find some things that worked?
I don't think it was they took the foot off the gas pedal. I want to think just the whole team fell apart. I think they tried to do a lot of things. They just couldn't get anything going. And when they got a few plays going, they just stopped doing that. I felt like they were throwing the ball on short plays pretty well. A few, trick runs, I'd say. They had the 57-yard touchdown run with Javarius Johnson. I thought, they were doing a lot of those things well, and they just kind of stopped doing it and then went back to their simple game plan like they did against A&M, which didn't work, obviously. Mm-hmm. So it felt like they just changed everything at halftime, and I don't understand why they would because you were up so much at halftime and you had a good lead. And, in Mississippi State, you don't want to slow down. You want to keep score because the more points you score, the less chance they have of coming back and winning it. And look what happened if you didn't score.
Yeah, this final score was a 43-34 loss. This is just it's just wow. This was a team, Mississippi State. Both teams were fighting. Mississippi State was fighting to be bowl eligible in this game, Ralph. And to me, let's dive in this. Was this shades of the 2018 Tennessee game that Auburn lost, in your opinion? Did it feel like a little bit like that?
No, I feel like this one was more, Tennessee came in. I think Tennessee came to Auburn, I think. And I want to say I feel like Tennessee had a good chance the whole time because they were still a really good team. Mm-hmm. But this one, I feel like Auburn had all the chances in the world to win. You're playing at home. I don't remember the last time Auburn lost to Mississippi State at home. It's been a while, I feel like.
Yeah.
I think last loss to Mississippi State in general is when Will Fitzgerald played for Mississippi State.
Nick Fitzgerald.
Fitzgerald.
Mm-hmm. And Will Rogers, Nick Fitzgerald. What's the difference? They both can sling
exactly.
the ball.
Yeah. Well, one can run the ball a little bit better than the other. But still, yeah, I just felt like it kind of does though. But I feel like Auburn had a way better chance this game. I feel like they're way more prepared. I think they're a little bit better team overall too. I just think Mike Leach is a great coach. That's just that's the best way to say it. He can coach anywhere and he can run his offense anywhere he goes, and I love it honestly.
Yeah.
That shows you that people were kind of like, why did he take Mississippi State? He could have gone somewhere else. Well, I think Mississippi State is a good spot for him. Mm-hmm. They need a coach who can be a little weird.
Yeah,
and
especially to compete in the SEC West. I mean, you've got to be a little bit weird.
And I mean, we might. What I mean by weird, like watch an interview.
Like, did you see his exit interview where he said what he would do on the 4-hour bus ride back?
No,
he said. So he goes, probably eat a chicken sandwich from Chick-fil-A, and then those little Debbie snacks that come in the packages. And he goes, I might even have a couple of those little peanut butter and jelly sandwiches that come prepackaged. Your favorite snack, by the way. You like those too. So that's why you like Mike Leach. Listen, let's touch on Mississippi State, and then I want to go back to Auburn. Mississippi State in this game, Ralph, like you said, they like to run. And what I mean, not run the football. They like to run. Like they like to go, 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 go. That's their mantra. Will Rogers in this game, 6 touchdown passes, Ralph. He was absolutely dominant, 415 yards. He was 44 of 55. I felt like Auburn played into the hands of what Mississippi State wants to do. When you play into the hands of what a team wants to do, you get in a gunfight in a big slugfest like this. Not even a slugfest, I should say, in a big air raid attack, which is what Mississippi State runs. Auburn's offense is way too inconsistent to play with that. They cannot win a football game like that against a guy who, and Mike Leach, we've talked about it, he's doing a lot right now with a little. Mississippi State's going to go to a bowl game. After the Joe Moorhead disaster, you know that they are excited about the trajectory of Mississippi State's program. Go Bulldogs, Hail State, ring the cowbell, whole 9 yards. Good for them. Let's turn the attention to Auburn. After back-to-back weeks where the defense played really well, to me this was a complete meltdown. Mm-hmm. Did not see them. I don't know if it was a sense of authority. The secondary was getting burned. And listen, I understand, but I think it's a combination. When you face an air raid offense, and this has a little bit of the schematic aspect of it, you have to get pressure. I don't care how good your corners and your safeties are. If you allow a guy to sit back there all day and pick you apart, it doesn't matter if it's you back there, Ralph. Eventually, a guy's going to get open. A defensive back can only cover by somebody for so long. I felt like that was one of the big things. So I got some losers for you in this one off of Auburn. The secondary, it was bad. The second part, the running game. Only 116 yards rushing in this game for Auburn. If you remove the Javarius Johnson touchdown, Auburn ran for 59 yards on 25 carries, which is good for 2.3 per attempt. Ralph, that's not the Auburn. I know it's a new coaching staff. That's not the Auburn we're seeing, and I don't think they can be successful when they have 25 carries for 59 yards.
Well, you talk about the secondary being one of the biggest losses here. They had 7 pass deflections on Saturday, which is probably a career high for Auburn in history. Feels like with how we always talk about Auburn's secondary, can it be good? And the people they put out into the NFL, it shows you like, is Auburn secondary just like really good, but then plays just really bad in college? Mm-hmm. But I feel like Auburn played really well that first half. I mean, overall, and people who hate Bo Nix, I want to know why. That man went out there and slung it in the first half. He finished with 377 and 2 touchdowns. He played the whole third quarter on a broken ankle. He didn't want to come out. Mm-hmm. He went in there and said, this is my team. I'll play until I can't go. And he couldn't go in the fourth quarter, and they had to take him out. And a lot of people were excited, and I don't understand why. I mean, I get it. You're frustrated. Don't be frustrated at one person. Bo didn't throw 3 interceptions. He didn't fumble 2 times.
Yeah,
he did his job on Saturday. Now he ran for -3 yards because he got sacked late in the game. Mm-hmm. His O-line's weak. They're not good. I mean, he needs help. You get Bo Nix a decent offensive line, your whole offense, your whole team in general is different. You're winning these games easily. I feel like Bo's overlooked, and his whole entire stat line's overlooked because of this game, because of them losing. If they said they won, wow, Bo played extremely well. Well, now they're saying we lost. Bo played horrible. That's just not how it works.
Yeah, Bo Nix didn't play bad in this game. I'm going to talk about him after this because we're not trying to pick on a guy that's done for the season. He's got great heart and whatever. I'm going to say what I'm going to say after that because I completely, 102% at the beginning of the year, thought coming into the season that Bo Nix, if you gave him an offensive lineman, he could do it. I don't think that he is the kind of quarterback that can lead you to a championship at all. That's just kind of how I feel about it. I'll say that in a second. But going back to this, you can't run the ball 25 times and only get 59 yards. You can't do that. When you're sitting on a lead, first off, there's no such thing. The term sitting on a lead should never be used. You need to keep your foot on the gas pedal. 25 for 59, taking away the 157-yard run, that's great. Now, what are a positive? Kobe Hudson has emerged as a legitimate receiving threat. Kid barely played wide receiver in high school, learning the position last year. He's a great athlete, had a fantastic catch in the corner of the end zone. He is emerging as a down-the-field threat. Now, listen, Mississippi State's defense is not very good. Not very good at all. So some of those passes, I'm going to say that in a second about Auburn, but some of those passes are not going to be available against the teams, against better defenses. But Kobe Hudson did that. Johnson had over 100 yards receiving. You had 2 plus 100-yard receivers in this game. That's a positive. The defense was bad. The offensive line is bad. So let's just be honest. Auburn is not very good. They're not a very good team. And what is it? It's not Brian Harson's fault. I don't think it's the current coaching staff's fault. If we're going to give a pass, Ralph, to every single coach in their first year, you got to give one to Harson as well. I don't think that this team is very good. I thought by the beginning of the season they could win 7 games. It looks like that they could do that. They could probably win this week, and I think they lose to Alabama. But who knows? 7-5, 8-4 is their max right now.
That 8-4 would be just shocking, by the way.
It would be shocking. They could probably win 8 games if they get in a bowl game with a favorable matchup. But the couple things I want to touch on about Auburn is because if we're going to give all these other coaches a pass for not winning a lot, you got to give one to Harson. This is a result of the Gus Malzahn era not having a foundation that develops players. This is what it is. You don't have any depth. That you don't have. And when I say depth, I'm talking about SEC standards. Auburn could go out right now and they almost beat Penn State. They could beat almost every single team in the country except for a short list of 10 to 15, I feel like, outside of the SEC. And those are the best of the best. But in this situation, you don't have the depth to compete with an Alabama, maybe this year, but you don't have the depth to compete with Georgia. You don't have the depth to compete with these other teams. So what you're doing is you're running guys out there that are good, but they can't play the whole game. Offensive line is not an SEC offensive line right now. They're not. They can't get the job done. And I've said this multiple times. Auburn embodies and I said this, Bo Nix is hurt, and I understand that. He's going to be done for the year. We're going to talk a little bit about that in a second. But in my opinion, what Auburn is, Bo Nix embodies what Auburn is as a program. This hot and cold roller coaster that you don't know what you're going to get every single week. And listen, Bo Nix played good. He did what he had to do. There's no big mistakes. But how many times, how much longer can you go with this? And I think now, due to an unfortunate accident of what happened, you're going to have an audition for TJ Finley, who is at least going to get a game against one of the top 4 programs in the country, and then a bowl game potentially. We'll talk about that as well. But you get a full week before the South Carolina game. This is his audition. TJ Finley's not going to get another shot to show what he can do. This is pretty much it right now. He doesn't have to look over his shoulder and worry if Bo Nix has come back in the game. But this is one of those things. I'm not trying to dog on a kid that broke his ankle. But the inconsistent play of what it is, I don't think you win a championship with it. I said it last week after the A&M game. It's one of those things. He's way too inconsistent. You can only play. You have about this much rope, this much leeway to play when you play that style of backyard football. They've got to, and you said it too. He's not a guy that's going to sit in the pocket and do that. And so what does it do? That runs the risk of him. I just don't even know how to explain his style of play. It's wild because it's like that's not fundamentally how you would coach it, but it's not good enough to the standards of a Johnny Manziel or even a Baker Mayfield aspect of it, or Kyler Murray, who have played that similar style to be able to be that effective over a long course of time. So I think Auburn has that. I think Auburn has. They've got to build on that. They've got to have good recruiting going into next year before they can really consider themselves. And fans have to be real. They're not very good.
I want to add just one thing about the comparison with like Kyle Murray and all of them. Kyle Murray didn't play in the SEC. This is nothing against what you're saying. I just want to say that defenses are a lot faster these days. So if you want to have a mobile quarterback, they have to be elite mobility. They have to be able to maneuver around these guys. Lamar Jackson is that definition of elite mobility for quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. You want to have a quarterback and run and score on those long runs, Lamar Jackson's your guy. But Bo Nix is not like that. He's going to be it's first and 10 on the 15-yard line and you run a bootleg and he runs it in. That's a simple Bo Nix run. He's not going to take it 80 yards for a touchdown. He's not going to make it a sprint. He's not going to win a sprint. He's not. He's fast, but he's not that fast.
Yeah.
So if you want to have a mobile quarterback, he has to be mobile. He has to be agile. He has to be able to, take it and go. I mean, Stetson Bennett. You look at Stetson Bennett. You tell me he's a mobile quarterback. You're telling me straight up that Stetson Bennett will be a mobile quarterback if you look at him. No. That's exactly what he has to do when he has to run. Gets to short yards. He makes a few moves he has to, and then gets a first down. Bo's not doing that these days. I feel like Bo's running for his life.
Yeah.
And it causes problems, and Auburn fans hate it. Well, his offensive line doesn't help him.
Yeah, and I get the offensive line argument is a real one. It's a real one, but I don't think you can win it until he.
I agree.
He has got to. I mean, he'll obviously, I'm guessing, come back for each fourth year, and you wish him all the best in recovery and all these different things. But I think you have to be real with yourself as a coaching staff. You can't get married to somebody because they embody the program and their dad played there. You got to be real with yourself. Is he actually a guy that can take us to a championship and is consistent enough to do that? Throughout 3 years, he has not shown the consistency. Has he shown flashes of doing it? Yes. The Oregon game his first year, beating Alabama, competing against Georgia, competing against LSU. He's shown glimpses of it, but unless he puts it together, then you can't count on that week in and week out. And as we've seen, to be a championship level team, you have to play at that same standard every single week, and that's not been the recipe for Auburn this year. But like I said, they've got to recruit. There was zero. I mean, Auburn has been a school for a decade that fails to develop players at key positions. Absolutely, they failed to do that, and so they've got to. That's up to Harsin. I think he's the right guy for the job. I said it when they hired him. I think that he's going to instill a new culture, but they've got to do that. He's not working with his own players. He recruits, brings some of these guys in, and they've got a pretty exciting recruiting class coming in, headlined by 4-star running back Damari Alston. So it's going to be really interesting to kind of see what they can do. But Tank Bigsby needs to have the ball in his hands a lot more too. That's that. I don't understand that aspect of you have. Let's just say, I mean, I think nobody would argue Tank Bigsby's the go-to playmaker on the offense. You got to give him the ball. I mean, I understand rotating backs and all this different stuff, but sometimes you just got to give the guy the ball and just let him feed, because a lot of times, Ralph, when a guy picks up a chunk play saying, let's go, I want it again, he starts feeling good, you've got to allow him to get more touches if you feel like if you want to win, not only this week against South Carolina, but especially in 2 weeks against Alabama.
Yeah. If you don't get, I think I've said this all year, is that you don't get Tank going, you're not going to win a game, I feel like, because, I can say it again, Bo can only do so much.
Mm-hmm.
And now you have TJ Finley, who is in, fourth appearance this year probably, I think. So you're going with TJ Finley, who hasn't had much playing time this year, on a road test in a dangerous stadium. I mean, William Bryce is not an easy place to play.
Yeah, it's not.
And South Carolina's a good team. I mean, they're not horrible. I mean, they're not bad. They're not good, but they're not bad. They beat Florida, which Florida's bad, but you don't want to go in there thinking you have an easy win. You did last year, you got beat. This is a different South Carolina team than last year. This is a different Auburn team than last year. New quarterback. I think if you want to win this game, let TJ get going. Let him and Tank get good chemistry early on. Let him throw a little play action, hand off to Tank Bigsby. Let him do this thing. If Tank Bigsby gets going, it's an easy win for Auburn. I feel like every single time. I feel like it's all behind Tank. It's what the military does. Go behind the tank.
Mm-hmm.
Auburn just does the same thing. Go behind Tank, let him do his thing. Then you can run off that. You can work off him. I mean, Jarquez Hunter, run with him too. He had 4 carries on Saturday. Now he had some really explosive kick returns, which is a good future for Auburn right there, because he could be a really dangerous aspect to this team out of in the backfield, in the slot. Auburn's got a good future ahead of them. I really agree with you about that with Brian Harsin. He's the right guy. I think he's got the right idea. He just needs to get some guys in there.
There's got to be patience too there, and it's hard because you're literally smack dab in between the 2 best recruiting teams in the country, 2 best teams in the country, literally how they're ranked. I understand the patience is not there.
You're trying to out recruit. Not just those 2. When you go to Georgia, you're recruiting over Clemson and Tennessee and all those guys, and you go Alabama's got LSU. Ole Miss, I mean, Georgia's getting guys. I mean, it's just crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So, Auburn sits in that right and dead in the middle of some of the best schools in the country and people want to go play for with some of the best coaches right now. And, Brian Harson's got to do his best is to get connections early, get coaches in there who know the area well. That's why I was really surprised with some of the or wasn't surprised with some of the coaching hires he took. You know, I think Zach Etheridge was a huge one. I think he's going to get some guys in there for the future, and I think Will Friend. I mean, he's going to get some guys in there for Auburn for offensive line. I think I agree. He's got Eston Harris right now out of Auburn High School. So look ahead for Auburn. Just, you know, it's a rough year. It's the first coaching year.
They've got to build.
How often do you go undefeated your first coaching year? How often does that happen?
How often does Auburn go undefeated in general with the schedule?
I still, but like, how often does a coach go in there and just say, "Here's a national championship, boom, there you go, done." Yeah. It doesn't happen every year. It doesn't happen really ever. So give him some time. You know, you got one more year, maybe 2 more years to Bo, right?
You could possibly have 2 if he decided to stay for another year. You definitely, honestly, I think, have 1.
TJ Finley ends up the season on a tear. I mean, just goes off. Beats Alabama. Wins the bowl game for you.
You finish 9-4.
You have an honest QB tryout next year. You really do. And I think Harsin will take that because at the beginning of the year, he didn't know who he had at quarterback.
Yeah, and this is the thing. Fans should want that. Like, you should want TJ Finley to come in and play well. First off, because you're an Auburn fan. But second off is because if you love Bo Nix, you want him to be better. And I don't know what's happening. Competition helps that. Like you said, competition breeds the best player. If Bo Nix and TJ Finley are battling it out, and even Demetrius Davis to a certain extent, then you have a legitimate battle, and it's going to make somebody better. How many times we see the guys that have to battle, they're usually playing at the top level because they know if they have a bad game, they're going to be replaced because the guy behind them is working just as hard and might just be just as much, just a tad bit behind them.
I want to say one thing. I just realized I forgot about this the other day, but Auburn has a commitment from Auburn High School also. His name is Drew Bobo.
Mike Bobo's son.
6'5", 300 pounds.
Yeah. They need offensive line help.
And honestly, they're doing a really good job at it. I think they're going after some good offensive linemen. They got some of their younger guys right now that probably aren't going to play this year. I think Auburn's. I'm going to say it again. Auburn's future is in good hands. I think Harsin has the right idea. Mm-hmm. You probably won't have Bobo or Derek Mason for long. More than likely, they're going to get head coaching jobs somewhere else in the future. So Harsin's just doing what he can for the next year, 2 years with the coaches he has there to help recruit. And then once they leave, he'll have his recruiting ground established and able to maybe win some of these guys over from Georgia and Alabama. So it's just going to take time. Don't be the stinker that says, "Oh, he sucked his second year."
Yeah,
Fire.
Don't do that.
Don't please.
Well, don't do that. But second off, this is the thing. You talked about Drew, but that's great and dandy. The odds of him coming in next year and playing immediately, one, that either means the guys you have in. That's what I'm saying is Drew Bobo might be a great player, and he may be a all SEC lineman, first round draft pick one day, and that's great. But fans should not look at an offensive lineman and say, "Gosh, we need him to plug and play right now," because that says about the current guys you have that you're not developing them. They've got to be able to do that. Listen, rarely has an offensive lineman come and jump from the high school to college level and immediately. Boom! Excelled.
It's a very hard jump. It's for one thing in playing offensive line. I know when I would go to camps and combines, I'm going to face better people. More than likely, I'm going to face guys who are really good. Even the small camps you went to. Like I went to a Kennesaw State camp. There was a South Carolina commitment against me. I mean, I know he's better than me, obviously, because he's a South Carolina commit. He's got better. He's getting more looks than I am. Yeah. My best bet is just to go against him as best I can. But some of these, look at Clemson beginning to have to face Georgia. You go out there in your first start in your entire career. You finished high school 3 months ago, right? You go out there and you're out on the big stage, national television, biggest game of the year for your team, and you're facing number 99 Jordan Davis, the scariest player in college football. I'm not prepared for that. There's no one on our defense who can prepare me for this. I mean, you have some good defensive players, but no one's that big and that talented. So your best bet is just to play your best game. And if it happens next year, if Auburn plugs in a freshman offensive lineman because they beat out everyone else, and now, like I said, that hurts development. But you play the best guys you have available. I stand by that. you want guys to get you want guys to get cut around each other, like offense line. You want your best 5.
Well, and you're right, but 95% of the time, the best guy available shouldn't be a freshman. It should be the sophomore or junior that's learned the playbook and know that. If they don't know that, then that's a problem on the coaching staff. Now, listen, Drew Boba could come in, and God knows he could just be unreal, and maybe he is the best. Maybe Auburn's offensive line group is not that good, and that's what they have to do. I don't know. We'll just see. But, hey, did you recognize a team, Ralph, that you did not mention when it came to recruiting? Let's go back to what you said. You said Auburn's got to out-recruit Georgia, Tennessee, and then they got at Clemson, and then they got out recruit Ole Miss, Alabama.
Are you talking about Georgia Tech?
No. I'm talking about the team you didn't mention was Florida, because Florida doesn't recruit during the season. Wow. And I'll tell you one thing, Samford might have impressed some of the recruits. If you want to go play for a high-powered offense, don't go to Florida. Well, I guess go to Florida because they scored 70 points. Apparently, the first opening week of college basketball filtered onto the Swamp in Gainesville this past weekend, Ralph, because the final score was 70-52 between Florida and Samford. Samford held a 42-28 lead at one point. Listen, Dan Mullen it's got to be over. You fire Todd Grantham, you make some changes, you promote Christian Robinson, linebackers coach, up to the interim defense coordinator position. It's not his fault. Listen, this is a nightmare of a situation. Now, we're not going to talk a lot about the game because, to me, anything that happened, you can look at two ways. If Florida would blown them out, it's just empty stats. If what happened is ridiculous. Samford's high-powered offense. We know that. You and I have both seen it in person this year. They're very high-powered.
Well,
very good.
You can, if you want to, you can go to my Twitter page and look at my tweet about the Florida game. Personal experiences from this Samford quarterback. Mm-hmm. So don't feel bad, Florida fans. He's a very good quarterback.
Very good quarterback. But a team like Florida should never struggle with an FCS opponent.
I agree. And this is one thing about FCS. The few teams that come into a college, Georgia Southern, when they were in FCS, when they came in to beat Florida in that really rough year for them, that's different. That's understandable. This right here, this is not a bad Florida team. They're not horrible. They got a good team. They have a good team. They're really good. But you let Samford come in here and almost beat you. You let them have 52 on you. You shouldn't even let them put 30 on you at most. And they were up, 42 to 21 at halftime?
Yeah.
That's embarrassing. And I'm not going to sit here. I know we don't have a lot of Florida fans that watch. But if you're a Florida fan, are you okay with that win? Are you okay with putting 70 on a team and allowing 52 to an FCS opponent? I wouldn't be. I'd be sitting there like, I wish we'd have lost. Because then Dan Mullen would have been easily fired after that game. But no. You let a team like Samford, who is like I said, an FCS powerhouse in their own greatness. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to FBS, they're not walking into any stadium scaring teams. And in my opinion, they shouldn't, especially Florida or anyone like that. Vanderbilt, that's understandable. But Florida, they're too good. They're too historic of a program to let this happen to you. And I think Dan Mullen's got to go. And he should be. And it's a joking matter to some people. But if you're a diehard Florida fan and you love that program, you want to see it get better. You want to see Dan Mullen gone.
Listen, you said Florida's a good football team. I don't think they are at all. Saturday, September 18th, which was 2 months ago, they lost to Alabama by 2. I don't know what in the world has happened to this team. They're 5-5. They easily, if they played Tennessee again, Tennessee would beat them. The only guaranteed wins on that schedule. This is a legitimate team that could have gone 3-9 or 4-8, and that's including a loss at the end of the year to Florida State. Who knows what's going to happen with that? Florida State's kind of found a little mojo, and they hadn't beat Florida in a while. So, but we'll talk about that in a second. But the only problem with letting Dan Mullen go, and Saturday it's easy to be in your emotion. Gosh, he's got to leave, all this stuff, but I look at Texas as a prime example of this. Not right now, but remember the amount of coaching turnover that Texas has gone through since Mac Brown and how bad they have been. Like, they've had a good year.
There? Charlie Strong?
Charlie Strong, and then they went Tom Herman, and now they're on this. You are at risk if you do this of entering into a stage of where A recruit has no idea what the vision of the program is. They can't commit because they don't know what's going on. You have a scheme that could potentially change. I still think Dan Mullen is a top level. If Dan Mullen got fired, he would get hired, and within a month, I feel like, of the offseason to be an OC somewhere. He's a great play caller. He can do that.
He's
but
a
as
great
of,
quarterback coach.
yes,
Really terrific.
But as of being the CEO, like an a la Nick Saban or Ryan Day or a Dabo Sweeney or now a Kirby Smart, he does not have the coordinators to be able to do that. And so it's going to take the ability to go out and recruit, which I don't know what in the world they do in that realm. They just lost a 4-star cornerback that flipped from the kid's from Jacksonville, flips and goes to Georgia. Florida's a dumpster fire. Tennessee is better than them. Tennessee is in a better spot as a program as them. Dan Mullen is putting up quotes every single week that are complete jokes, in my opinion. I mean, it doesn't even seem like real life with stuff he's saying. But the argument, Ralph, if you do let him go, do you enter a territory, we'll call it coaching purgatory, of you don't really, you're caught in between. Your current roster doesn't know what's going on, and then your future roster doesn't know what's going on either. And so you're caught in the symptom of, well, we've gone through 3 or 4 coaches in the past 10 years. What do we do now? Texas did it, and they still have not recovered. As evident their loss by Rock Chalk Jayhawk.
And I just don't know who Florida would go after and pull in after a Dan Mullen, stint at Florida and expect to have a quick turnaround. And that if you're Florida, that's what you want, a quick turnaround. You want, because you have the talent. You have the recruiting.
The talent has to be on the roster. But this is the thing too. You say the talent, they're being out recruited by Georgia, and they're saying that because that's the main rival between Georgia and Florida. Now Georgia is arguably out recruiting everybody except for Alabama and maybe Ohio State or Clemson. I think they're out
recruiting everybody right now.
Everybody right now, probably. But Georgia has finished in the top 5 the last 3 seasons. Florida in that time is sitting top 25. You know who's also in the top 25? Like Maryland. Florida shouldn't be on the same level as Maryland. They should be on the level of Georgia, LSU, Alabama.
Yeah, because they should win their own state, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because
and that state's big enough for them, even if they do lose some guys, to still get the majority of the big guys.
You should win your own state. I've always said that, and it's, Auburn and Alabama are going to battle every year. Obviously, Alabama has the upper hand right now, but, they're going to battle in their own state. And it's just, Florida's big enough. They easily should win Florida. The Miami shouldn't go there and pick Allen and out recruit them. Mm-hmm. Florida State's definitely not out recruiting anybody right now. But Georgia should not win your own state. That's bad. And if you want a coach to come in there and just quickly get you a 9 to 10 win season on the first try, then you should be okay. But I don't know there's a coach right now who can come into Florida and do that. Now, if you pull from local, we're not local. I mean, pull from your inside and pull someone up. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah,
there's not a guy on their staff who I think could coach an SEC caliber team. But like we said about Texas, though, Texas is in a way different situation with their coaching staff. I think they got the right guy for them for the future. I don't think you'll see another coach in Texas for a while. And then to go off Tennessee. We talked about Tennessee in, I don't know, when was when I started calling them a dumpster fire? Probably June?
Yeah, it was June.
So middle of June, I started calling Tennessee a dumpster fire. Well, I'm beginning to think it for Florida, for coaching wise. Now, I'm not saying the whole team is a dumpster fire. Emory Jones tossed 6 touchdowns on Saturday. He had a great game.
Mm-hmm. But Samford has a horrible defense.
Oh, I know. I watched it. I watched them play against Mercer, and now they didn't stop. They stopped the run. They just could not. They stopped the pass. They couldn't stop the run that game. But I just feel like Florida's just such a great job to have. I feel like it's a great coaching place. You have a great college town. I mean, a great stadium to play in, and you pull. I mean, it's easy to pull recruits into Florida. It's Florida. Why would you not want to play there? And I don't think Dan Mullen understands what Florida means to people.
Florida has finished 9th, 9th, and 14th over the last 3 seasons. Before that, they go back into the 20s. That's just not going to win you a championship. And I know that some teams would be envious of that, but that's not what Florida should be striving for. And the bottom line is you talk about what Florida is, kids don't see that. When's the last time Florida's been relevant at the national level? Last year? Not really. I mean, they were. They were by default. But since the days of Tim Tebow, they really have not been. It's the same thing as Texas. Going to play for Florida in the swamp and going to play for Texas and the burnt orange and with a Longhorn helmet doesn't mean the same things as it does to our age as it does to the new age of kids. It does not mean the same thing. Same thing with USC. These powers that we're like, oh, they used to be so good. We start sounding like older people talking about Nebraska in the 90s, Miami in the 90s. The time has passed. They did not make the necessary adjustments, and now they don't have the same brand management, brand exposure that these other programs do. And we talked about this summer. I remember telling us what team could come back next. And I think I threw out some schools, and I think Texas was in that category. But it's really interesting. Staying on the coaching train, an aspect of this, LSU's another interesting situation, Ralph. LSU's a very interesting situation. How the lame duck head coach thing is just unbelievably dumb to me. Because you are not, if you're an AD, you're hurting your program because now you can't recruit. There's nothing for these recruits to be promised. There's nothing for them to be promised. So what you literally, I know Dan Mullen, and that might have been taken into context what happened, but literally what's happening right now is at LSU is they can't recruit because there's nothing for these seniors in high school to commit to. You don't know who the coach is. The current coach is just not going to talk because what is Ed Orgeron going to say? What's he going to say? He's not going to say anything. So LSU's in a mess too, and they bring Butch Jones back on a second. I mean, come on. That's ridiculous. LSU is a top 5 or 10 job in the country. It is. It is. And LSU's been relevant better than Florida has, Texas, or USC in the past 10 years.
LSU is – I didn't know this till now. That's 2021. Never mind. I was looking at I was trying to see the recruiting class this year. They're 12th nationally. And if they're able to keep these guys and add on to this recruiting class, that is a huge win for LSU because not only do you keep the recruits that you have, which include 2 5-stars, you're able to add a coach who can continue and add on to it and give you a big one. I don't know who they're going to bring in, but you can't bring in some random guy from, California and expect him to pick up where Orgeron left off on recruiting. Mm-hmm. Now, the Butch Jones situation, if Butch Jones gets a job in the SEC again after the horrible thing he did at Tennessee, just a horrible job he did at Tennessee, he's a winner everywhere. Was
life
he a
champion? Life
champion. Go look what he's done at Arkansas State. It's the Sun Belt. I'm a Troy fan. I know how the Sun Belt is. I know how weak it is sometimes and how 2 or 3 teams are really good. You don't win one game in the Sun Belt with Arkansas State. Arkansas State is a really good team. Mm-hmm. They are really every year. They have been. It feels like their coach left. Situation was personal matters. I understood what it was. I remember the story came out. But I don't see Butch Jones getting an LSU job. And if he does, you're going to watch that recruiting class plummet. I wouldn't want to go play for Butch Jones, in LSU especially. Now, when we talked about the coaching thing right here, it crossed my mind. I thought it was funny. If Florida was to fire Dan Mullen, would he go to LSU?
Oh, that would be wild. That would be absolutely wild. But I'll read you apparently the hot board right now, and this is real. This is not fabricated rumors of what LSU has. Obviously, Jimbo Fisher is one of those. The next one on that roll is Lincoln Riley. They would love to buy him out and bring him over there to the SEC. He'd just be switching jerseys because Oklahoma joining. Mel Tucker's another one. Could they possibly buy him out and get him over there? And another one's Luke Fickell. Those are apparently the top 4 candidates right now that the search party goes after. Now, that's not saying that they're going to get those guys, but if you are a coach, you should sit there and say, these are the 4 guys that we really want. And why would you not go after guys that might have an inkling of being there? Obviously, Billy Napier's in the conversation. Apparently, Chris Peterson from Washington. The former Washington head coach is in the conversation as well. I think it'd be very interesting to see kind of what they do, what they go. We're going to come right back. We're going to talk about a team that has just kind of steamrolled through SEC competition, posting their first 10-0 and 8-0 record in program history since 1982. When we come back.
Cook's Place began serving our signature hot dogs in 1985 from a cart on Broadway. We still serve the best hot dogs and scrambled dogs in town at the corner of Moon and Miller Road and at the landings. Our friendly staff won't let you leave hungry. Come in and eat to the beat with our 50s jukebox. Cook's Place, fast service, great people, awesome food. What are you waiting for?
Back here on the Crowded Booth Live, we appreciate you tuning in on the radio in East Alabama, West Georgia, or if you're watching live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, make sure to hit that subscribe button on YouTube. We'll hit those notifications as we bring out much more content. Ralph, we're talking about the Georgia Bulldogs who went on the road, and it was a big win for Georgia fans because they've never gone 8-0 in conference, and so this is big since the conference expanded to the 14 teams, where they play 8 conference games. That's something that's been changed. This is big in a lot of different areas because a lot of people felt like this was the big last test before Atlanta for them. They passed with flying colors. The biggest thing in this aspect is they stayed healthy relatively. Nolan Smith and Devontae Wyatt are going to be okay. You have pretty much a bye week this week if you're Georgia facing Charleston Southern. Then you play Georgia Tech, which a lot of Dog fans say that's a bye week as well. And they don't have to worry about the triple option, so you don't have to worry about anybody getting chop blocked. So that's a good thing as well. So you can rest up some guys. Talent can win you those 2 games alone. And I only say that because both of those other teams are really bad. And compared to Georgia, I should say. I don't know about Charleston Southern, FCS level, but Georgia Tech is bad compared to Georgia, very bad. In this situation, Tennessee did some things. They scored 17 points. They scored on the first drive. But the 13-play, 90-yard drive that Georgia had changed the complexion. Tennessee obviously felt some pressure, went for it on 4th down. Georgia does that. And that was kind of the moment for me. When you saw them go for it on like 4th and 7, you knew that Heupel said, we've got to score here. We cannot give them the ball back when they're going up empty-handed. They didn't. Georgia drives back down the field in 3 plays and scores a touchdown. They've done it every which way. This was impressive once again of what Georgia's able to do, but Tennessee showed some glimpses of, to me, why they're going forward into 2022 and beyond. They should be this number 2 team in the SEC East.
Well, I think it's the only really game I kind of paid attention to besides the Ole Miss game. I felt like Tennessee came out and did exactly what they wanted to do at first, and they kind of stunned Georgia. And really, if you watch the game, Georgia was not ready at first. I think Tennessee drove downfield, scored. I was like, "That's good. There you go. If you want to beat Georgia, hit them early, because you're not going to be able to do it down 2 touchdowns." But then Georgia marched down, and they did exactly what they do every single game. It's just wear you down, mentally, physically, and just straight up just abuse you. And I mean, the score says something different. I feel like I know 41-17 looks like a blowout. It really didn't feel like that. And I feel like Georgia still sat there and said, it's still Tennessee. They could come back somehow and make it a good game. And I thought they could too. I thought Tennessee did a lot of good things. They can look at this game and improve on a lot of big things. Heupel's first year, he walked into a horrible situation at Tennessee, and he is riding it right now. He is just saying, I'm going to take it by the reins. I'm going to carry this team out of the dust, and we're going to win some games. Now, they're not going to win 9 games first year. It's a hard thing to do. But I think he's got his quarterback. I think he's getting some recruits in there, and he's gonna get a better defense. The defense is rough. You got a guy who worked at the Dollar General up the road from us last year. I mean, that dude was playing insane. He's really good too. The one thing from Georgia I take away, and we talked about this at dinner tonight, who do you ride with the rest of your quarterback? I say Stetson Bennett. You know why? Because if Stetson gets hurt in a big game such as the SEC championship game, you rely on JT Daniels. Okay, you feel confident as a Georgia fan when JT Daniels is your reliable backup? I would say that for any school. Yeah. If JT Daniels is my backup quarterback, I feel comfortable. But Stetson's got that hot hand. He's been leading your team all year. He's been doing it since last year, in my opinion. So I just want to see some respect put on Stetson's name.
Yeah, I really can't express how impressive a victory this was for Georgia on the road. It had all the makings of a potential trap game. The storylines going in of what Tennessee's offense could do. And a lot of the conversation, too, I think it's about time, and Gary Danielson said it, it's about time people stop saying what Stetson Bennett can't do and say what he can do, because he can do a whole heck of a lot of things using his legs. They love that factor of him. The design quarterback runs they're able to run with him. James Cook had a coming out party in Knoxville. I'm telling you, and I said this in our mailbag, we had a question about it today. Georgia's defense is going to win them about every single football game on the schedule by that alone. But if Georgia's offense is asked to score 40 points, I think they can do it, because I don't think there's a defense that could stop them, because there's not really a great defense. There's not a complete team in college football. Now, listen, that doesn't mean Georgia's perfect, but they're probably the most near-perfect team in college football this year. But in order to have a great defense, you got to have a great offense. And I don't think a team can stay on the field. Ralph, when you look at this, Tennessee ran their season low in plays in 73. Georgia ran 70. 31-27 was the time differential aspect of it. Tennessee had the football. They just couldn't do anything with it. And Georgia did a great job of, like you saying, early punches were thrown. That's going to be the recipe to beat Georgia. But they could not withstand. The in-game adjustments made by Dan Lanning and this staff is unreal. They continue to take the next step, and they're well on their way to a date in the SEC title game. Potentially against Alabama. We're going to see kind of what happens. Craziness could still happen. Arkansas is still breathing.
I want to say that watching Georgia is probably about the fourth game this year I've watched it completely through. Their defense is, and I always say, suffocating, dominant, straight abusing. But right now, in my opinion, it's just fun to watch. Because it really is. And people who love football understand this. They're able to go out there, show you a different scheme almost every different drive, and beat you the same time, or same way every time. And the defense overall, the whole defense plays extremely well. Now, I feel like they give a lot more yards than they wanted to this week. Did you say this is the most yards they get all year?
Yeah, it is. It is. I mean, it's respectable. 387. I mean, that's really good. That's a good
332 through the air, which, I mean, that shows you how good Tennessee's gotten. It really is. I mean, I feel like, Georgia's able to do their own thing in their own respect. Run it, throw it, just straight up beat you, I think. And then, props to Tennessee. They stayed in as long as they could, fought hard toward the end, but Georgia is too good. James Cook, man, what a game. What a game. I mean, 3 for 43 through the air are on receiving wise and a touchdown, and 10 carries for 104 yards and 2 touchdowns. I felt like he couldn't be stopped. But Georgia, like you said, had a trip in Atlanta against whoever comes out of the West. I don't even know. I can't tell you who's going to come out of the West right now.
I would say it's Alabama. I don't see Alabama losing this week. If Alabama wins this week, the whole race is over. It'd be very interesting to see. Alabama plays Arkansas. Arkansas is still a good football team in their own right. They've got some pieces for sure. Wrapping up that conversation, college football is wild and wacky, Ralph. Some quick thoughts. Kansas beating Texas is a big win for Kansas. And Texas, I'm saying this right now, Texas cannot compete in the SEC next year. They can't. They don't have the tools or the roster necessary to do it. What do you mean by that, Bryce? I mean by winning an SEC title or going to the SEC title. They for sure wins on their schedule right now. If they were playing the SEC this year, would be South Carolina, Missouri, and Vanderbilt. And I don't even know about South Carolina because I think South Carolina is better than Kansas. It's bad. It's so bad. And it's very interesting. Saw a joke that said, y'all don't want to change that membership over to the Sun Belt Conference or Conference USA Conference? Because that's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see that nonetheless. Another thought about this, Cincinnati, I think that they are going to make the playoff. They've got 2 quality wins left on their resume plus a conference championship game. It's going to be interesting to see. I'm going to roll with, obviously we're not going to have a show tomorrow night. Ralph, give me your top 4. I'll go first. I'm going to roll with my top 4 is going to be Georgia, Alabama, Oregon, and Ohio State. I think it's the same.
I mean, I like that one. I mean, there's not much I can change on those 4. it really all depends on what happens this week, man. This is a huge week. I know Auburn plays South Carolina, Georgia plays Charleston Southern, and Alabama plays Arkansas. But that Michigan State Ohio State game changes this whole season. This whole season, in my opinion. I don't think you change the top 4 right now. I think it's, like you said, Georgia, Alabama, Oregon, Ohio State, or Ohio State, Oregon.
Well, I've told you for a couple weeks now, Ohio State's going to win the Big Ten. They're going to be in the playoff. It's going to happen. I know you don't want it to, but I'm believing.
It's not I don't want to. I just want to see something different. And you know why. I'm on the table of saying I hate seeing the same teams. And I know it's the best 4 teams every year, but I like seeing that little curveball. Now, if Michigan State wins this weekend, we don't have to worry about it because whoever wins the East is winning the Big Ten. Let's just go ahead and say that because the West is a joke, straight up joke. I mean, you're telling me that Wisconsin, Iowa, Minnesota, and Purdue are your best 4 teams in the conference. Purdue is ranked 19th in the country.
Mm-hmm.
I can't watch. The Big Ten's a joke. They split the teams up. Realign the whole conference. Like, why are Michigan State, Ohio State, Penn State all in the same division?
Because somebody had a little too much to drink before they made those. That's why.
They did they just went and squiggle around and said, we're going to put the teams in some random order.
Hey, Ralph, let's talk locally here because obviously we're on the radio locally. The wraparound of the first round of the GHSA state playoffs. First off, let's start in the AHSSA, where Central dominated Theodore, scoring 70 points. They made their way to the semifinals. It's going to be fun to watch. But going back to the Georgia side of things, Brookstone upsets Whitfield Academy, wins that one. Pacelli wins their round. They're going to be going to the second round. Callaway with a big win. LaGrange with a big win. Harris County with their first road playoff win.
Yeah, that Harris County one was shocking.
That was a big one.
In a very dominant fashion of 56-35. That was a huge game. Shout out to Katie Hutchinson. Huge game for him. I think, the local area is doing really good in football. Hardaway obviously lost this weekend. They're done.
Carver won.
Well, they play West Lawrence. But, I want to say one thing, and this is a good thing for Georgia fans. Michael Williams is done for the year. He'll probably have some good time to rehab. If you didn't know, he hurt his hand.
Yeah.
I want to say
he'll go play in the Under Armour All-American Bowl.
Will he play? I don't know. We'll have to see what his hand.
He'll show up. He'll be there.
He'll be there.
I guarantee that.
He's signing, I believe, in December. Early signing day. I don't know if he's an early enrollee. I don't know about that. That's not my area of expertise with that. But Georgia fans should be happy to see him done for the year because you want him healthy for next fall. Brookstone, huge win for them. I think that was a very shocking win for people like you and me who went to Brookstone. Yes, we went to Brookstone. Get over it. Pacelli won also, Bryce.
Yes, I said Pacelli won also.
Did you? I'm sorry, I didn't even hear that.
That's fine.
I was looking. I was trying to get those scores.
Troop with a tough loss as well. They were banged up all season. They lost 3 on starting offensive linemen. Tanner Glisson will have that group ready for next year. Teo Todd's junior year.
A very young team.
Yeah, they should be really fun to watch next year. But hey, it's going to be fun. A fun Friday night. If you're in the area, you need to go check out some high school games. You can check out those schedules over on GHSA's website as well as Alabama High School State Association's website as well. We appreciate everyone for listening. This has been another episode of the Crowded Booth Live. We had the Week 11 college football recap. The Dogs roll in Knoxville. Auburn blows a Falcons type of lead as the Pirate, Mike Leach himself, enjoys a Chick-fil-A sandwich and an Uncrustable on the way back to Starkville, Mississippi. And we didn't even talk about it, but Ole Miss beats Texas A&M, a good win for the Rebel Black Bears. And it's a lot of fun, though, the Ole Miss Rebels and those beautiful powder blues on College Game Day with a big win. We appreciate it, as always, everyone. We say so long. We will see you on Wednesday night.
Pile in here and make yourself feel at home. The Crowded Booth is coming on.